already been looking at one story of Moses with the staff of God in his great battle against the Amalekites. But there's another one which Jesus actually mentions it's recorded in John's Gospel when he's talking to Nicodemus. And it's a story I call the snake on the stake. It occurs, I think, in the book of Numbers, where Moses has got a lot of trouble with his people again. He's still leading them around the wilderness, and they are fed up with the same manner food they're having to eat every day. It's the same food all the time, not getting any changes, and they get fed up with it. And they want to go, maybe they're mumbling and grumbling about going back to Egypt. But they're fed up with the food. And God gets very cross because, of course, God has fed them with this miraculous stuff called manna, for all that time. And God gets so cross that they get hit by a whole plague of snakes. And they get bitten by the snakes. And a lot get very ill and a lot start to die. And Moses, the people say to Moses, please would you go and pray, please, that God will take the snakes away. That's an obvious prayer, isn't it? I mean, that's our wisdom again, saying this is the thing, get rid of the snakes, get rid of it. Moses goes and talks to God. Now, God does not get rid of the snakes. Isn't that interesting? What God says to Moses is, no, what I want you to do, we were talking about precursor of the cross again, you see. God says to Moses, put up a stake and get a bronze version of a serpent and nail it to the top. I understand, which I thought was rather interesting, is that the ancient Hebrew, the word written in the Old Testament there for that bronze serpent is the same as the word used in the Garden of Eden to describe Satan. Nail him up there. Now, what God said to Moses was, the people who've been bitten by the snakes, tell them to go and gaze at that, and they will be healed. Which they did, and they were, just by gazing at it. And Jesus says, when he's talking in John 3, 14, 15, 16, 17, all around there, with Nicodemus, that he would have to be lifted up like that. In other words, that's the reference to the cross, isn't it? You see the comparison. It would have to be lifted up like that. God so loved the world. That's the way that God loved the world, that he gave his only begotten Son. And the same dynamics occur today, and they haven't changed one little bit because God doesn't change. Now, God did not take away the snakes. That prayer was not answered. It's the obvious prayer to me, but it wasn't answered. God did not take away the snakes. And you know, and I know, that life today is full of snake bite. Everywhere you turn, things go along nicely, and sometimes you get bitten by a snake. And that's symbolic to me of the sort of things that can go wrong in life and upset you. But the answer in kingdom terms, the answer is always the same. The best answer out is to go and get people to gaze at the cross. Now, of course, we don't mean physically stare at a cross to see if that'll help. What we do mean is that, and we've seen it over and over and over again, is that people worship Jesus. If people are thankful to the Father for what Jesus has done on the cross, if people proclaim the message, raises our faith expectancy of God, that sort of gazing, yes, emotionally wondering at the wonder of the hugeness of what God has achieved for us on the cross, all that sort of thing, and then people get healed just because it opens that faith expectancy of God, opens them to receiving what is flowing from the work of Calvary. So, just to recap, Jesus did say to Nicodemus that that's exactly the way in which the Son of Man, that's to say Jesus, would have to be lifted up And John then writes, and that's the way that God has loved the world. Yes, he's provided the cross for us, that if we go and gaze in wonder at it, problems will and do disappear. Because our faith expectancy, by receiving the message, our faith expectancy is lifted up, hopefully. And if it does lift up, the faith expectancy, then we can catch the river of God's grace that's pouring at us.